Hi everyone. So today we're talking about increasing product impact while possibly decreasing your workload with one simple trick. And I have very tall shoes to fill because Daniel also came up to me and said, oh, that sounds really interesting. I'm looking forward to your talk. And I'm like, uh-oh. So let's try and make this work, people. Who's interested in that, out of interest? Can you put hands up or not? Couple people. Okay, great. Who thinks that's great, Maxim, but that's absolute bullshit? You go ahead, yeah. Oh, that's good. That's not as skeptical as I thought you would be. You're very nice today. Because if I saw that on an ad on the internet, I'd be like, yeah, great weight loss ad, people. Which is why I went for the title. I thought it would be funny, but it's up to you to decide. So, instead of making you wait 45 minutes until I tell you about that one simple trick, which by the way is not meditation, although it is great if you want to do meditation, I'm going to talk about it straight away, and it's empathy. And you're probably thinking, oh, okay, great, Maxime, thanks, cool. I've got a meeting to attend to, and you just rush out. I mean, I'm lucky because you have to literally stand in front of everyone if you want to leave, so you can't leave, but you want to. But honestly, empathy, and specifically user empathy, will deeply serve you in your work, no matter how technical it is. And what is empathy? Well, empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of other people. And today, expanding on this one simple trick, I want to actually show you a simple process as to how to understand your users better and how to then take that and make that work within what you are doing. Now, a little bit about me. I am indeed of Dutch origin, so it's an absolute joy being here in Amsterdam. My first time actually doing a conference talk here, even though I've been to various other places. And I've been doing iOS for a while, so it was quite funny when Antoine did that little stand-up exercise this morning, and I was like, gosh, okay, it's been a while. And I've worked at various places, and I've had a range of different roles. So whilst I've always been in and around iOS, I've also actually worked as a designer, design technologist, which is basically a prototyper, in product. And so it's because of those mixture of skills I'm very excited to talk to you today about empathy. What I'm doing now, Jeroen actually already asked me about this, is I'm trying to get more varied people into the tech industry, not just as developers, but also for them to bring their ideas so that we can work on really interesting innovation that can serve everyone. And for that specifically, I work on things around tech literacy. And I was talking about that at 360 iDev this summer. And basically, it was all about how we as engineers could better communicate with non-engineers about the knowledge that we have so we can all make better decisions and ultimately better products at the end of the day. Very much the soft skill thing that Jeremy also mentioned earlier today on the panel. And it was there that two things happened. One, I met Jeroen, which was great. And second, at the end of that talk, I had a developer come up to me, an indie developer, and he was like, the thing that you describe about people being very hesitant to touch screens, I keep seeing that because I keep giving people my app. And they're not quite sure how to do it, they're not quite sure how to use it, and I don't know how to get more information out of them, I don't know what to fix. And I'm like, well, have you run specific user testing sessions? And he was like, well, kind of not really, but that's where I'm running into these problems. I'm asking for feedback, but I'm not getting a lot of feedback. And so I was like, this might be interesting. So when I got the opportunity to come here, I thought, you know what, given that we have a couple, how many of you are indie devs or contractors or more or less solopreneurs? Couple people. I'm hoping this will be very useful, but even if you work in a larger organization, I think it will still be useful, and I'll show you why. So, really, the aim of empathy and the aim of usability research is to get people to love your products, because if people love your products, everything else will follow, and everything else will be okay. Now, I kind of teach this kind of stuff daily because I work with founders who often have very little funding. They're working on their first product and they don't have the chance to mess it up, quite frankly. They've put their life savings into that first MVP build. But usually things are a bit different for us because the cost of iteration kind of feels cheap to a developer because we can do it ourselves. Like, what is an extra evening in front of the TV coding with maybe a bottle of wine or a bottle of beer? Like, it doesn't matter, right? But actually, I'm here to argue that it does, because does that justify the price of customer disappointment? Because you might think, oh, everything is fine, I'll read some bug reports if anything goes wrong, but in case you didn't know, right, 62% of people uninstall their app if it crashes, freezes, or in any kind of way feels like it doesn't work. And at that point, it might be very hard to bring them back, even though you've got a very neat bug report, ideally with the little stack trace that you think, oh, great, I can now debug that issue. So how do you avoid that? Unfortunately, you're going to have to talk to people. But don't worry, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks today. You interact with people, and through that, why would you actually do that? Well, there are various stats online about the ROI of UX. There's a study done that quotes a whole bunch of different research, but typically speaking, you can see about 100x return for every bit that you invest into UX as a whole. That could be user research, that could be optimizing your experience in various ways. So if you are a contractor, say, and your rate is 500, you could multiply that quite a bit, and you might be skeptical about that number, but they say that 35% of cash is left on the table just because of bad UX. And 88% of people abandon a shopping moment because of UX and will never return. So in that context, these numbers start to make a little bit more sense. If you're still wondering how, what, and why, and where, I've got a little bit of my own story. So I used to work with a team at SwiftKey. And it's funny because this was the summer of absolute madness if you were around for iOS 8 because Swift was introduced. Extensions were introduced. Under the hood, extensions meant watchOS. So if anyone was secretly working on watchOS apps, they were having an awful summer. And my team, we were building a keyboard because I used to work at SwiftKey. It was quite a popular keyboard at the time, third-party keyboard for Android. But because of Apple's ecosystem, we weren't able to have this on iOS until on June 4th. They stood there and they were like, oh, by the way, keyboards. And of course, then the expectation became immediately from the entire company that the 6 of us should have this ready by the 1st of September. So that was an interesting 3 months, people. But what was a really steep challenge beyond a whole set of interesting, crazy APIs that change every week was how do you teach the user to install a third-party keyboard when they've never had to do so? Typically speaking, you install an app, you download it, you open it, you use it. You either know how to use it or you don't. You either learn or you don't, and then you uninstall it or you keep using it. But there were 17 steps before you saw this screen. 17 steps before you could actually type on this keyboard because you had to download the app, go to the app, understand the instructions, go back into settings, and then go through about 10 different menus, press a bunch of buttons, and then switch your keyboard to the other keyboard that you actually wanted to try. So how do you communicate this to people? So we ran usability sessions every single week for the 12 weeks that we were working on this project. And by the end, when it launched, we were very lucky. We had 1 million downloads on our first day, which was a bit of a roller coaster. And out of those 1 million downloads, 83% of people successfully installed their keyboard. And if I recall correctly, I think our initial figure there was 11% when we started before usability research. Had we not done that research, we wouldn't have been able to create a flow and create an onboarding so precise that most people were able to install it successfully. And so thinking back to that previous stat about the return of investment on user research and UX, thinking about yourself as developers, imagine if you don't put that effort in and then people are kind of out in the wild trying to figure out your product. It can be a real big challenge, and it could mean losing an opportunity effectively to work with them and to get them on board to love your app. So you're like, okay, that's well and good, Maxim, but I've got questions, right? Like, I'm just a developer, and maybe even thinking about yesterday's talk from Peter and Stefan, I'm a small developer. So, I don't have all of this availability to do all of this kind of stuff. So let's go through some of those questions. Like, for example, only designers do UX research. Not quite. I mean, obviously, yes, that's part of their skill set, and if you've got a great design team, that's awesome. But there are a couple of things I want to talk about here. If you're an indie dev, kind of in the context of the person I was talking to at 360, it's something that you can actually pick up, and it's not an incredibly difficult skill to get started with very quickly. Yes, of course, people are very skilled and they've spent a lot of time perfecting it, but as an engineer, you can pick up a good chunk of it. We're very good at picking things up and learning quickly, so it's not something that just designers do. Even in the context of an organization, another reason why designers can't do it alone is that they need you to oftentimes prototype things such that you can do effective user research. So even if you're not doing the research questions themselves, you might actually be working on artifacts that are then used for research. So I would say it's something that anyone can do, and it's something that many different skill sets, if they contribute to it, only strengthens the ability to do it. The other thing you might be thinking is, well, but I don't have fancy like two-way mirrors, a one-way mirror system where I can watch people and put them in a UX lab and observe things. Now, some people do that, but it's actually quite a rare way to do user research, and also not necessary. You can do it kind of anywhere, and I found that out with one of the first apps that I published. I think it was 2011, and I made this thing called Beauty Geek, and you could scan barcodes of beauty products and then search different web shops online to see where you wanted to purchase it online. And I was thinking to myself, okay, well, I don't know if it actually works really well. I think we could improve it, but I'm kind of stuck now, right? Because you're working on your own, and there's only so far that you can take that. So like, where can I find people that might use this? Oxford Street, which in London is like a really big shopping street. You could go to Broadway in New York, you could go to the Kalverstraat in Amsterdam, like every city's got the main shopping street, right? So to Oxford Street I went, and I literally stopped women on the street, and I was like, hi, would you mind taking a couple minutes and, use this app? I would love to see how you use it. And they're like, sure, no problem. Every single person said yes. I was so surprised. And this was even before I was aware of etiquette. I didn't offer them a coffee. I didn't offer them anything in return, really. I literally just asked them in the middle of the street if they could pause their day, and they all did. So that was very nice of them. And basically did an impromptu kind of 5 to 10 minute user research session. And after a couple sessions, I realized there was a real issue with the purchasing flow. And I was able to fix that, release the app, and from then on, what I saw, at least from the stats, things were going really well. So you can do it anywhere. Then lastly, you might say, well, I don't have time. I'm doing a lot of things, especially as engineers, we have a lot of side projects and so on. But also the fun thing about this kind of research is you actually don't need a lot of time. Quicker is better. You're better off doing a little bit often than a whole lot in one go. Because you actually only need about 5 interviews to get 80% of most usability issues in your product. Statistically, this has been shown over and over again. It's different to analytics, so you don't need hundreds and hundreds of data records to make meaningful, derivations from it. So you can do this in about a day, maybe 2 days if you want to space it out a bit, you want to have prep, and you want to make sure that people can book time. But if you are about to launch an app, or you're working on a big update, or you're doing a lot of refactoring, I think it's really worth taking 1 or 2 days to make sure that it's completely nailed down. And the last question might be, well, great, Maxime, but I don't know how. Now that's not a problem. That's why we're here today. So we can work with that. The first thing that you do is you add the Swift UX research package. Not really, unfortunately. I'm sorry, guys. It's not quite how it works. But I can simplify it to kind of 5 to 6 steps. So you find the right people. You dedicate one-on-one time. Quite important, you want to do this only with one person at a time. Group sessions work a bit differently. You plan your questions, which we're going to be talking about. You observe and probe. And then you basically consolidate the results. Now, that would take a whole day to go through. And you're thinking, well, Maxime, you said it was simple. It was one simple trick. So we're only going to look at these 2 right now. So how to plan what you're going to talk about, and how to then work with people to get the right information out of them. Now, why am I focusing on this? Because we're naturally inquisitive as developers. We ask for feedback all the time. So I'm hoping to show you today how you might do that in a slightly better way. Number 1. Ideally, don't ask questions. And you're going to be like, what do you mean? How can I ask questions if I'm not asking questions? How am I going to get the right information? Well, if you ask a question, typically speaking, you're already asking them to do something. And what we want to see is what they would do in a natural scenario that they find themselves in when they're at home, when they're on the bus, when they're on the tube, wherever they are when they're using your product. So think of the common user journeys in your app, and then frame them as situations. So think about the place, the time, the people, and the goal. So for example, I'm picking something random. You're at a cafe and a friend recommended a book. Can you show me how you might learn something more about that book? Where would you maybe go to purchase that book? Or how would you make a decision as to whether or not you'd be interested in that book? And then let them wild with whatever app that you're using effectively. Now the other thing is, you should ask questions. And you're like, but you just told me not to. Well, ask questions because you don't want to take yes or no for an answer. So you want to use every answer that they give you as an opportunity to learn more about the context and about their situation. And for that, you kind of do ask questions. It's funny, I was talking to, I believe, Jordy yesterday about Vivid, which brightens your screen, and it wasn't working for me. And we basically managed to work out why, because I have an old laptop. And what would be interesting is I was just thinking about that, like, gosh, how would I do a user test for that? And what you might do is sit someone down and say, hey, have a look at this. Like, they can read and install the app. And you might ask them a question as to, like, is this, what do you think this does? And would you use this? Now, if someone then says, no, I never want to brighten my screen any further than, I need to. What do you do with that? Like, most people would think, oh, no, okay, fine, let's go to the next question or the next question. But that's actually a beautiful opening to learn more about that person and say, well, what brightness do you normally keep your screen at? Do you work in a bright environment or in a dark environment? Or do you sometimes have trouble seeing something on your screen? Or even the best answer, more often than not, is just repeating what they just said. So if they say no, you go, no. And then before you know it, they're off. They're like, no, yeah, because blah, 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 blah. People love to talk. So you're going to learn a thing or two. Now, how you ask the question also matters, because we don't want to prime users. Basically, what happens when you prime users is it's something like saying, well, can you have a look at the support section of this app, right? You're already telling them where to go. They're already thinking, okay, I'm going to go to that section for support or something or another. And now suddenly they've got a very particular journey that they're going down purely because of the way that you asked it. There's actually interesting behavioral economics research that's been done that talking about an attribute of a product affects what kind of product they buy. So when people came into the store and a sales consultant said something like, what kind of memory, what are your memory requirements for this laptop? People were like, oh, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. And then the other half, they said, well, what are your processing requirements for this laptop? Blah, 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 blah. Turns out that all the people in the processing group bought laptops with higher spec processors, and everyone in the memory group bought laptops with higher memory capabilities, because the attribute that was spoken about influenced how they were deciding their products, and hence they went for the better products in that category. What does that mean? Basically, we need to be very careful with how we ask certain questions and how we phrase things. We also want to make sure that we set people up for success. And to me, this is one of the most important things when you go into a session like this, because this is where you get to use priming to your advantage. Where I always say at least, we're testing the product and not you. Because you are asking people to basically complete a bunch of tasks. It can feel a bit like, a pop quiz or an exam, and it makes people a bit nervous to act as they would do normally. So we're testing the product, not you. And then the other thing I often say is, please speak out loud. If you're confused about anything, I'd love to know what is going on and what you're thinking. The reason that you do that is because that's why we're doing this exercise. You're trying to understand the mental model of the user. When they're seeing your app or your product, what kind of construct have they put in their mind to make sense of what they're seeing? We're not trying to teach them how to use the product. We want to know how they think it works based on what they are seeing by themselves. And the best way to do that is by hearing and understanding what actual little thoughts they have as they're interacting with your product. Finally, you want to set yourself up for success as well. And the easiest way to do that is to prepare what we call a discussion guide. So obviously practice makes perfect, but a robust guide that gives you at least some high-level points of, okay, we're going to look at the onboarding flow. We're going to look at the purchase flow, or capturing data, or sharing this, or sharing that, and then writing a little scenario for each of them to kickstart that conversation, and knowing we have about 10 minutes for this, 5 minutes for that. That will really, really help you get the most out of the half an hour, the hour, however long you're sitting down with someone for. You know that you're getting all the right sections and the most important sections of your app. So, I was planning this talk and I was like, I can keep going and going and telling you how to do this, but maybe it'd be fun to do it live. So, to demonstrate this, let's call to the stage the one and only Jeroen.
Hi, my name is Jeroen.
So bear with me as I am going to switch this around so you can actually see what Jeroen is going to see. Cool. All good?
Yep,
Awesome.
it's good.
Welcome, Jeroen.
Hi.
How are you?
Yeah, I was told to show up here, and then
Yeah.
afterwards I get like a free sticker.
Yes. Okay, we can arrange that.
Okay, cool.
Okay, we'll make that work. So, do you have any idea, like, have you been to a usability research session before?
Nope.
Okay, well, this is going to be fun. So I'm going to basically ask you some questions about this product. There are no right or wrong answers. Basically, it's just we're understanding the product a bit better, and I would love to see how you use it. How does that sound?
I think I can manage that.
Perfect. And if you can talk out loud whilst we go through it, that would be really helpful.
No, I'll try to do that.
Perfect. No worries. I'll be monitoring. I'll be managing the session, so you don't have to worry. So, this is what you're looking at. So I'm going to describe a little scenario before we dive right in, before touching it, please. Managing users is very fun. So let's say that you've moved to the UK for some reason. There was an interesting opportunity. You've signed up with the local phone provider, 3, and someone at work tells you that you can get discounts and rewards.
I love discounts.
Oh, perfect. So you've downloaded the app and you're looking at it now, and without touching anything yet, can you tell me a bit about what you're seeing here? Talk me through.
Well, I'm seeing some things, like a coffee cup,
Okay.
people eating popcorn, and somebody I don't know who's having a live pre-sale.
Okay.
Peter Gabriel. Oh, isn't that an artist?
I have no clue.
Okay, so yeah, and there's like this weird bottom bar that looks different than what I see in my other apps.
Okay. So what do you think the coffee cup and the popcorn and things like that mean?
I think treat yourself to a $1, £1 coffee, and so I probably can like get myself a cheap cup of coffee, or I can go to the movies for like £3. I'm not sure what Peter Gabriel wants to do in a live pre-sale though.
Fair enough. And is that something you would use? Is that not something you would use?
Well, my kids love going to the movies,
Okay.
so probably going to go with that one if I had like points in this thing available already.
So you mentioned points. What do you think? What do you mean by that?
I usually with like companies, if you're on board with them, they, depending on what you spend, you get like points that you can spend again on stuff that they say that's discounted, but I'm skeptical with those kinds of systems.
Okay. How come?
But going to the movies for £3 sounds reasonable.
Okay. How come you're skeptical of that, out of interest?
Well, I got burned by this stuff too many times a little bit, so that you get points somewhere and then you look it up online on like a price comparison site, and then the discounted price that you get is actually higher than what you would actually get if you just go look around on the internet a little bit.
Okay. So basically, price transparency and price clarity is important to you. You
Yes.
want to know that it's actually a deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Perfect. So, now you said you love going to the cinema, your family loves going to the cinema, so can you show me how you might use this app to get those discounted cinema tickets? Don't worry, you don't have to pay for anything, you don't have to purchase anything.
Well, I guess I'd tap it.
Okay.
And then let's see, there's no button on this screen. I can go back. Oh, get reward.
Okay.
Get reward. I want my reward.
Oh no. They can't see it.
Oh no.
Okay, so I'm
Not
going
touching
to-
anything.
Not touching anything, people.
It's the bad cable. So we're testing cables actually in this session.
Yay! Okay, so try and scroll.
I'll scroll. It's moving.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so there was like a button here, but
Yeah.
and it has locked. So this looks different.
Yep.
Oh, there's the that's the thing again. Okay, so your reward code. It's like a super weird QR code. I can copy it to the clipboard, but how to use it? I don't want to read all this. Use it now.
Okay.
Oh, what happens? Where does the app go? So why
What do you think just happened?
I switched to the browser, but where's my discount now? I want my discount.
Where do you think your discount is?
Probably in the app still or something.
Okay.
There was this QR code, so maybe I have to show it somewhere if I go to the movies. But I always order my tickets online, and then take my tickets with me in my you know, you have like on your wrist or on your phone, that you have this in your wallet.
Yeah.
So the iPhone wallet.
If you had to try and find a way to use what you just had digitally, how would you do that?
I would expect that I would be able to order tickets and select seats and then pay for my tickets and then go to the actual movie theater and then just walk around and just show my ticket and be done with it.
Okay.
So nothing like when I'm there. Yeah, maybe just buying some popcorn or something, but and some drinks, of course, because you need like this huge amounts of like carbonated liquids when you're having a movie, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
So the discount code that you had, sorry, I'm just going to keep it on just in case it's still working. So there is a way that you can apply the discount code. Do you want to give it a go, or do you want to walk me through how you think you might use the discount code to get digital
Let's
tickets?
have a try, because I'm just going to go back to the... Okay, so let's read what it says here. Click the button below, I did that, and select your chosen cinema, film and time. Enter your reward code, yeah, blah, blah, blah. Once you added your code, add any additional tickets, then press confirm. Follow the rest of the process to complete your booking. Oh, so they're giving me a discount, but I still need to pay like 75 pence. Okay, so, I have to remember like all 5 steps here now. Okay, go to the page, add voucher. But I need to get my code. Okay, copy to clipboard.
Okay.
And then use the reward code now. Then select the cinema, they said. So I'm just going to go to Belfast. And choose a screening time. Oh, screening type. Okay.
There's so many nowadays.
I don't care. I just want to see movies. Choose a film. I'm feeling... No, I don't want... Why is it selecting stuff when I scroll? This is like super weird.
Hey, we're on the website now, people. Just saying.
I'm starting to feel like a barbarian now. So, there we go. 2D or audio described. No, I don't want interpretation. I just want the normal version. It's a bit of a... Oh. Log in. Continue as guest. Ooh, enter code, enter code, enter code. I'm like the one-armed bandit here. So where's my discount now? Hey, wait a minute. Oh, there's the discount. Okay. Okay, so I need to select a ticket. Am I a senior? I'm a senior developer, but it's still moving.
Okay.
So yeah, but I'm not. This is like age related, I guess. So I'm an adult, right?
Yeah.
Oh, this is not a kid appropriate movie. Then okay, so I'll take my wife. And £20. There was a £3 discount in the app.
So what do you think just happened?
They're ripping me off.
Okay. And that, people, is the conclusion of the talk.
So, confirm tickets.
It's okay, because we don't have to actually purchase the tickets today.
Okay.
But I'm very interested to hear about what... Yeah, Belfast is gorgeous. I'm very interested to hear what you think happened with the price there.
Well, they didn't even add the 75 pence booking fee yet. So it calculated like the standard price, and the Cineworld Plus is that not the price that I'm at, but I'm using the standard price.
Okay.
So I was supposed to pay like 20, but why is it 23? So the discount is not a discount; it's actually a surplus, surcharge. So that's what it looks like to me.
Okay. So going back to the app, is there any information you can find there to explain how the pricing would work, do you think? Can you try that, please?
Yeah, can have a look. Terms. 1 code per week, expires on Sunday. 1 3 adult 2D standard seat. Upgrade for free if available. Only if you go on Fridays to Sundays. So that's like almost, that's the weekend. Book online. ID required. Participating cinemas only. For questions, I have no clue.
Okay.
It doesn't say anywhere.
Fair enough. So, given that you've just had this experience, would you use this app to go to the cinema or not?
Probably not. I will just
Okay.
go to the website and then
Okay. Can you tell me a little bit about why?
it's too complicated. I just need to like tap and then copy something and make sure that I enter that code somewhere else. Why can't I just tap something and that the code is applied automatically? And while I'm there, it's not very clear to me how the discount is actually applied, if it is
Yeah.
even applied. And on top of that, it was like it was very funny because at the top it said like £10 almost, but then at the bottom it was more. So that's not how discounts work, right? At least. So it was
Absolutely.
confusing.
Okay. Makes complete sense. So we're going to look at another scenario. Say that you want to plan a fun date night at home, and your partner's always said that they think Italian food is fun, it's romantic. Could you show me how you might use the app to plan something like that?
So this app.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's try and find something. Pasta make. I don't know.
How come? Have you ever tried to make pasta before?
Yeah.
You don't.
It's like a lot of work. I know we have people in my network, because these people here are not here actually, that know how to make pasta, but I think if I would invite somebody over to help me make pasta, that would actually defeat the purpose of the date night.
Okay. So in that case, what else do you see on here that you might want to use?
For date night? And no pretty grape grill.
Can you show me how you might search in the app to try and find a bit more or see what might be of interest?
I would expect something to be at the top there, but all rewards, that sounds... price draw, retail, I don't know, food and drink. Tuck into comfort food favorites at Frankie. Unlock your inner chef. Treat yourself. Chiquito. Choose any drink. Uber Eats. That there you can order stuff.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. So we're going to look at a couple final scenarios. So say that you walk past a Nero Coffee. Now, Nero Coffee is a popular chain in the UK. We've got Coffee Company here in the UK. Obviously, Starbucks is quite known. And you realize you get a free coffee, or a discounted coffee, should I say.
Okay.
You've already claimed the code, but you haven't used it yet for this week, because you get a new code every week. Can you show me how you might find it?
I probably should back to, no, not the rewards, because I was in another screen, so I think this one.
Okay.
Treat yourself to a $1 coffee. It's probably coffee, not a coffin, right?
Well, I mean, if you want a coffin, maybe we can ask them, put in a request.
Yeah, but that would be really poor quality cardboard, I think.
Yes.
So I think I'll just show up to the barista and then just like show it at them. Does this
Okay.
work here?
Now, say that there is an issue at Nero Coffee and your code is no longer working and you can't claim a new one because it says you already have one.
Yeah.
Can you show me where you might find some help to work that out using the app?
For questions about this offer, contact Cafe. For questions about 3-app, contact us. But which one do I contact if I have problems? Nothing here. Settings? Nope. I would expect that to be here then.
Okay.
I would just try and... I don't like calling people.
Okay, so what if I told you there is a way to do it in a app, possibly not in this screen? I've noted that you prefer it in this screen. Can you give that a go, please?
So it should not be in this screen. Complete your profile, all rewards, no, my codes.
You can go to settings where there's no personal, well, there's some personal info, but it's okay.
Get in touch, hey, live chat.
Okay. And people, I'll stop it here. Thank you very much. Can we give you a round of applause? Thank you. Stop. So, there you have it, people. That is a way to do user research. Normally it's not quite this funny, but thank you all for making it really entertaining. What are some things that people have noticed? You can shout it out, I'll repeat it on the mic. Come on, you guys learned nothing from that?
There were a lot of expectations that were not met by either the app or the website.
Mm-hmm.
Also, you did a really good job at saying what we expected.
Exactly.
Very helpful.
Perfect. So Donnie said that there were a lot of expectations that were unmet, and also Jeroen spoke out loud very well. I would say that is indeed quite common. So even though, because I told Jeroen, I was like, I'd love to come and have you help me on stage, and he was a bit like, well, I don't know what to do. And I was like, it'll be fine. But it's actually typical of most people that they do start to talk out loud like that. And you could see he was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that, or I actually thought it would be here, or it would be there. Those are really interesting things to note down. I'm also hoping that 3 isn't going to absolutely butcher me when they see this video, because I didn't think it was going to go that bad. But it goes to show, right? Like, everyone can always learn something from an app. So also note that I never once explained how it actually did work. So usually at the end, if you've got an extra couple minutes, you can debrief it with the person and say, you know, that thing that you were stuck on, this is actually how it works. So with this 3 Cineworld ticket, it is actually £3. But it's only Monday to Sunday, so you have to pick a screening during that time. And it's a voucher code, and you only get 1 per person, so if you're getting more than 1 ticket, it won't work. Now, at least now it's very clear, okay, those are expectations that aren't very obvious at the top. It's not very clear in the site where to put that or how it's applied, and so those could be things that we want to fix, right? The other thing was, I believe, if we go into here, so there was also no search bar at the top. However, you were still able to complete the task. So eventually, Jeroen did go to all rewards, looked around at the top here, was able to filter out some stuff and thought, hey, okay, maybe I want to go for some food or something like that. So in this case, you might say, oh, I need to put in a search bar at the top. You don't necessarily have to. This is why I do a couple of these sessions and you look at themes. But in theory, if people can actually complete the task, it's more or less okay. That is a great room for improvement, but if you've got bigger issues, like people being confused and thinking this is a scam, it doesn't work, right? You might want to address those first before you add something like a search bar. It was also clear that settings wasn't obvious to go to when it comes to problems. Well, it's great that there's this live chat at the bottom here. If you're having an issue with a code right in that moment, maybe that's a better place to put it, for example. So those are just a couple of the takeaways that you might see in this case. So now let's wrap. The thing about this is that qualitative research, shows you why things are happening. And these are both the good that you might want to use in marketing copy or something. If people say, oh, I really love this and this, great, now you know that. But also the bad and how to make those things better. What's really interesting is you are right there as it happens, and so you can ask questions. So instead of looking at analyzing, bug reports and so on, you have the opportunity to figure out what is the context that the user is in when they're trying to achieve certain things, because that's something that ultimately analytics isn't always able to tell you. They might show you the whole flow of screens that they've chosen, but you don't know what they were trying to do or why they chose that particular sequence of screens to get to somewhere. Now, I also promised you, impactful product development and possibly less work, because oftentimes as well, these sessions will show you what not to build. I can tell you it'll be about a third of what you think you should be doing will just be scratched off because people, apparently turns out, don't prioritize that as much. So it's really helpful because if you've only got a couple days to say really finish a particular product, or you want to prioritize certain features and so on, it will help you prioritize that for you. Now, what do you do with all this content? This is some of my summary boards that I make for clients that I work with. And 2 things I want to point out. 1, I take everything people have said in their own words. So it's not about your interpretation of what they've said, it's about what they've actually said. And then you can start looking at, okay, now that I know everything that everyone has said, what are the themes? And actually, it turns out, you might think you leave with a large to-do list, but that's very rarely the case. Here I've got 4 primary recommendations of things that absolutely needed to be fixed, and about 6 or so that would be nice to have. But with 1 round of research, just about 5 or 6 people, you can get 4 really impactful changes that you might make that can make a big difference when you launch or update your product. So, we talked a bit about that one single trick. Now, I've told you it's empathy, it's how to understand people better. I hope that I've given it some more color for you, given a little bit of a sneak peek behind a process behind doing that for you, so that you can understand your users better, build your products better, and ultimately, hopefully, save a bit more time and get a bit more done. The nice thing about empathy is actually that whilst I talked a bit about some technical things here, is it's actually a very natural feeling. And once you see people struggle with an app that you've built and you have the ability to fix it, you naturally want to do that. I've never seen a developer sit in on any of the sessions I've done and not been like, oh my God, they're trying to press that thing. I know exactly what to change and how to fix that. And so it's actually a very, very fun automatic process. So with that said, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this. Design thinking and tech literacy is my jam. I'm always happy to chat about that or anything else. Come say hi. Thank you for having me.
So before we head off to a cup of coffee, does anybody have any questions? Right at the front here, so it's easy.
Hello, thanks for the talk, it was great. I would like to ask, how do you keep notes during the research, and do you, because with this research you didn't, like what tips do you have to do that, and what's your technique?
Great, Q. So yes, absolutely, typically speaking, you want to do notes. Now again, you can do this simple or you can do this quite robust. If you have a full team, typically there's 2 or 3 people there, one person facilitating, one person note-taking, and then one like kind of backup person. But if it's just you, record the session, write down a couple notes, but ask them the permission to record this. I always say, you know, may I record this? It's not going to end up on YouTube. It's just internal purposes only, which they're always fine with. I don't think I've ever had someone say no. And then you can always go back. I do take notes because I type really fast whilst I'm watching people do this. But typically speaking, you want to focus more on facilitating than note-taking. So recording is probably your best bet. And if there are certain things that come up, again, you can note them down. But often what we end up doing when we note-take is we put our interpretation of what we're seeing. And what we actually want to do is try and capture things in their words as much as possible. So I would say recording is your best bet if you don't have a secondary person to write things down.
Thank you very much, I didn't think of recording.
Sure. Note as well, something that you can do on Zoom that I always do is you can share remote control on Zoom. So when I test things, I'll put it up on Zoom, I'll share my screen, I'll hand remote control to someone else, somewhere else in the world, and then they start interacting with the site or with the app and so on. Yes, they're using a mouse in that case, you know, specifically if we work with apps, but it's a really great way to be able to easily do these kind of sessions when you're not able to find people in person or obviously during the pandemic and so on. And with Zoom, you can automatically record it, so that's great.
One more there. Toss it over there. Wake up. I have to reach all the way there. Okay, there it goes.
Off by one.
I need new glasses, I think.
I have a question. Sometimes our designers do those interviews and there are like 4 or 5 people taking part. Like, I mean, 4 or 5 clients. And I always was wondering how 4 or 5 people can be good representative for the thousands of users that we have.
Yeah.
Is there any math behind? Because like, if 4 people would say that this feature is wrong, but maybe it is just 4 people that are annoyed by this feature and everyone, the rest are happy with it. Is there any like way to like avoid such issues?
Yeah. It's interesting because statistically speaking, we feel like it's wrong. Like 4 people can't possibly be enough data. And you're right, it's actually 5, but it's still very, very low. I would say 2 things. Firstly, pick the right kind of person, right? So if you are doing a sports app, say, and you're picking people who never exercise and they are not your target audience, it's probably not a useful demographic. So I think when you can go back, in that like step 1 till 6-bit, the first one is picking the right people. And so you do have a target user profile, and so you want to use that in order to find the right kind of folks to bring in. You want to have some representation amongst your user base. The other thing that you can do, especially if you have an established product already, is you can send a memo to people and say, hey, do you want to take part in our user research? And oftentimes people will, especially when you reward them with a voucher or something. Typically speaking, I give Amazon vouchers or something for folks who spend an hour of their time if you're doing a more formal setup. The math does actually show that it's the kind of law of diminishing returns. After 5 interviews, you get 80% of the usability issues. And when you ask it in this kind of way, where you say, hey, can you complete a certain scenario, people will stumble over very similar things, typically speaking. What you don't typically want to do is, what's your opinion? What do you think of this? Because people want to please, first and foremost, they want to be liked. This is just a natural instinct, so they'll say things like, oh, it's great. When you ask them to complete tasks and they can't, they'll get frustrated and they'll tell you, I think this is not great, and they'll tell you why. And because you ask it in that kind of way, the math does actually add up, and you will find it is. Have a look at Don Norman, his work. He's the one, I think, behind the mathematical setup. I can't go up and tell you exactly the breakdown, but 5 people will give you 80% of the issues. And yeah, if you conduct the research properly, it will work.
And follow up is, should I next interviews go with the same group of people, or should be always the new people?
Great cue as well. So it really depends what you're testing. So if you're testing a fresh look at things, what do they think the product is? Can they onboard? Can they work out how to use it? You absolutely want fresh people every single time. You can do a longitudinal study where you see the same people every week, or if it's about an update or you're bringing out new features to existing users, you want to see if they can understand how to use it, etc., then that might be a great candidate for getting people back in.
Thanks.
Sure.
All right. That's the time that we have.
Thank you.